Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I want to do a review that's a long time in coming, and that's of this little guy right here. This is the KME Precision Knife Sharpening System. So depending on the kit you buy, it may come in a big old case like this with all kinds of different stones and options and bells and whistles. I ended up doing the deluxe set because I am a reviewer and therefore I should spend money. At least that's how it feels someday, but you don't necessarily need to go there. But the basic upshot of how this system works is it's a guided sharpening system. A lot of people compare it to the Lansky sharpening system, which is a very good budget sharpening system, but this is on the higher end. And the way that it works is you take a knife, like your Z-Hunter here, you put it between these jaws, like this. And then you tighten this down, tighten, tighten, tighten. Here we go, tighten, tighten. By the way, you wouldn't want to actually sharpen a serrated knife like this. The Z-Hunter is just here for show, so to speak. Now, once you've got this tightened in there, it's locked in there about as securely as the Z-Hunter can do anything secure. So there it is. And then what you do is you use this little stone holder and you insert a diamond stone. Or whatever other kind of stone you'd like, but in this case, I've got a diamond stone in there. And then you slide it into this little hole right here. Wow. Yeah, you really need to tighten that more than I just did, FYI, for those of you in the audience following along at home. Moving along. Hashtag not a brilliant man. But anyways, once you do that, you've got this, and then all you need to do to sharpen is to drag, 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 back and forth, back and forth. Then you flip the knife over. And then you can do the other side at the exact same angle. Drag, 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 back and forth, back and forth. And next thing you know, after maybe, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on the steel, your knife is good and sharp. And that is, well, as they would say, a beautiful thing. So that's how a KME system works. I actually bought this guy myself. As many of you guys know, I've used the Edge Pro Advanced system for a long time. But some elements of it never quite sat well with me. For instance, the stones are fairly slow to cut, at least the factory stones are. As well as the fact that you have to secure the knife at all times. So every time you're sharpening, you need to be holding the knife with the other hand. And I am not terribly ambidextrous. And my buddy Bud over at the Birdshot IV channel convinced me to give the KME a shot, and well, here I am. So I've now spent a good while with this guy. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 months, and I really like it, and I want to go ahead and do the full good, the great, the bad, and the ugly Nick Shabazz review. So here we go. Let's jump into it. Okay, so on the good side, first and foremost, this is actually a fairly easy-to-use sharpening system as far as I'm concerned. There are systems out there that require intricate steps, but this is pretty straightforward. You set the angle, you clamp the knife in pretty good. This is an EC Zancudo at the moment, by the way. And then you just drag, and you drag, and you drag. And you can go in either direction here. It really is pretty, I don't want to say idiot-proof, because the world has a way of making great idiots, but it's a pretty excellent sort of system. It works very, very nicely, and so that's one of the very best parts about this, is that compared to some systems, this is pretty straightforward to use. It's not very hard. Next thing I got to point out is that it does come with an actual hard case, and I'm having to kind of shift things around because this is way bigger than things I normally review, but it comes with a case, and that case contains everything you need and, frankly, a little bit more. For the system, that's a beautiful thing because it's not taking up 15 meters on your desk worth of space in the background there. It's a nice thing. Next thing, it does come with a stand, but the stand is actually optional. There is nothing stopping you from using this guy in a handheld sort of method, which means you could actually do this sharpening sitting on a couch or in your easy chair. Unlike systems like the Edge Pro, which really do require you to be on a tabletop or even the Wicked Edge, this guy can be hand-mounted. All you need to do is just keep using it in your normal way and holding it relatively steady. But again, because this is keeping the angle set, you don't even need to worry too much about that. And so that's a beautiful thing in and of itself. Another thing I got to point out is that this works very well for large and small knives. I was able to sharpen both the Grimsmo Norseman using the KME, as well as my Spyderco Rhodey, which is a very, very tiny knife. And so it didn't really discriminate. It works well for large knives, it works well for small knives. The Edge Pro, unfortunately, doesn't work as well for the really tiny stuff. You have to really scoot it up there, and it gets a little bit fiddly. But this, because of the nature of this clip, and because of how small they come together at the end there, works very nice. They also have an adapter for special kinds, but I haven't tried that yet. So that's a beautiful thing. There are also a variety of accessories, some of which you should consider, some of which you may not need to. So, for instance, one of the accessories is this little guy here. This was actually a gift to me from Frankie and Bert. Oh, that was adorable. Christmas gift. Anyways, moving along. This is a recurve stone for the diamond. It's a diamond recurve stone. It's designed to get up into the recurve areas within knives. So it makes sharpening a knife with a recurve a great deal easier. That's a nice little solution. They also come, you can get ceramic stones for if you prefer to work with ceramic, although I gotta be honest, I haven't used the ceramic stones that come with my kit hardly at all. The diamonds work very well. You can also get a strop with some compound, which will help you to put a really nice edge on there, although I've been using the lapping stones. So these are lapping films, that is. These are little pieces of glass with a little tape of film on the side of it. This is a 3-micron film, and so when you use this guy, this is what gets you that really super mirror polished edge. This just clamps right in along with any of the other stones, but it does a wonderful job, and it can bring an edge to an incredible mirror polish. See if I can show this off here in the Norseman. This is one heck of a mirror polish. I'm proud of this, I'm going to be honest. So that's good. On the other end, on the super coarse end, you can get what they refer to as the Beast. The Beast is a 50 grit diamond stone. This thing is beautiful because what it does is it removes a huge amount of material very, very, very quickly. This is the way that you reprofile an edge. The Spyderco Shopmaker, for instance, is a very nice system for keeping your knives sharp. But if you have to actually remove material, it's going to take you freaking forever. With a stone like the Beast, you can just go to town on something and remove a whole bunch of material very, very quickly. And so it can turn a knife that could take hours and hours to do into something that's pretty straightforward. Especially on steels that are very wear resistant, like your M4 steel on the PM2. This is another edge I did with the KME, by the way. Look at that freaking mirror. It's a, again, sorry, I'm proud, I'm a jackass. The Beast really makes shorter work of that, so that's something I recommend 100%. And actually, believe it or not, the base here is an accessory. It doesn't come with it, that's a little weird, but anyways, it's another nice, very nice little accessory because it lets you set up on, say, your kitchen table and just go to town for a little while. Reduces your arm fatigue a little bit. So the accessories are very, very nice. Next thing on the good side, it's very easy to get a good consistent angle with this guy because you really do dial it in over here. You have a basic angle gauge, although don't trust these numbers too much because it's really going to depend heavily on how far your knife is out forward or backwards on the KME. So that's an important thing to keep in mind, but nonetheless, you can get a very consistent angle, and it's very easy to keep that angle consistent when you flip the knife over. On the Edge Pro, that was always a trick because when you flip the knife over, you're holding it in the same position. So you need to make sure you are holding it in the same position on both sides. Whereas with this guy, when you flip it over, I'm just pressing in here and then rotating. It's guaranteed to be in the same position on both sides. You need to do and pay attention to their instructions, but still, that's a beautiful thing. Very nice, and for me at least, this little kind of innovation here, this rotating ball, I don't know if it's an innovation or not, but whatever it is, it works, means that there's very little space for your little guide rod to scoot around. So it will always be doing the right thing. It will always be in the right position and maintaining the correct angle along the edge. So that's nice. Like I said, it's very easy to switch sides and maintain that angle. That's a big win for me. And it is a pretty straightforward, at least for me with some sharpening experience, to get these really nice edges. This is kind of dirty at this point, but nonetheless, this edge right here on the Norseman was done with the KME, and I actually did it twice. So I did one clamp like this and one clamp like this to get the front edge. Oh, here we go. Move it over. But nonetheless, it was very straightforward for me to do that. And getting a nice, beautiful edge is not something straightforward. And I gotta say, I found it a little bit easier to do on the KME than the Edge Pro. Again, I've got some experience sharpening, so you may have an easier or tougher time, but nonetheless. So that's, for at least for me, the good. You get these really stellar edges. It's easy to switch sides and maintain the angle. It's easy to get a consistent angle. You get a bunch of different accessories, including a bunch of ones I haven't even talked about yet. But, you know, if you look on the website, they're everywhere. It works for small knives and pretty large knives, although there's a limit. We'll talk about that later. It can be handheld or standheld. It's got a nice case with it, and it's pretty easy to use, all told. Let's talk about what's great here. For me, what's really great about this system are the stones. They are not stones in the classical sense, in the sense that they are on the Edge Pro, for instance. As I mentioned, these are diamond hones. They're little metal plates, basically, that have been impregnated with diamonds in some very, very durable way. And they are wonderful. I love, love, love working with these diamond stones. Now, I'll say, I haven't worked with the diamonds on the Edge Pro, or on the Wicked Edge for that matter, but these are spectacular, and I gotta say, they hold the diamond grid in there a great deal better than some of the I've had like DMT diamond plates where the diamonds just came off in a shower of bling. It was kind of really ugly, even using low pressure. So I'm really impressed with the stones on these guys. There were a couple of reasons for that. They're very aggressive, so they just chew through M4 steel. I used to really hate sharpening M4 steel. Now that I've tried with these diamond stones, I actually really enjoy it, because you get a very good edge and it's not so terribly brutal. Sure, it takes a little while, but it's not the end of the world anymore. And that's nice. They cut very easily. They also put a very nice finish, even coming off of the 1500 grit diamond stone here. They're very, very nice in that way. There's also a nice variety. So again, I bought the luxury kit, the ultra kit or whatever, and so that doesn't include any of these, but it does include these four, and just these four are going to be very good for most of your purposes here. When you throw in the beast, the extra course, and then these two lapping films, which I just love for the mirrored edges, you get something that is just spectacular on this guy. They also, like I said, they've got a nice variety, they've got a nice continuum, so if you go in this order, and usually I'll skip the 100 grit if I'm coming off the beast, but still, if you go in this order, you get a very nice progression of scratches that leads to a very nice mirrored edge. There are people who can do even better than it. Frankly, Bird is better than this, better with the KME than I am still. And then finally, they are dry stones. I mean, I use a little tiny bit of water mixed with a little bit of dish soap to lubricate just a little bit, but they are not like the stones, for instance, on the Edge Pro or conventional whetstones where you have to soak them for a little while first. That seems like a little tiny detail, but that's actually really excellent, and it's one of the reasons I love this system so damn much. With this system, because it's in the case, if I have a knife that's dull as a butter knife and I just wanna sharpen it up real quick, I can grab the case, I can set this up on the table, I can knock it through a couple of grits if I need to, and do a full reprofile. That takes a little longer, but still, I can knock out this sharpening in like 30 minutes, and I can put the whole damn thing away, and I'm done. As opposed to having to take the stones out, let them soak for a little while, then do the sharpening, then let them dry overnight, then put them back away. That's a whole different affair. These feel very, very quick to just pop out and go to town on. So I love the diamond stones on this. It is beautiful, 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 and I can't imagine going back to non-diamonds at this point. I'm sure there are areas where they're really necessary, and but still, they're very, very, very nice. One other thing I'll say about these little lapping films here is that they are very, very nice in terms of retaining that they are diamond-based, but they retain their grit a great deal better than the films that I used on the Edge Pro. And I don't want to feel like I'm just knocking on the Edge Pro here, but that really did impress me. I got maybe 3 or 4 knives out of the Edge Pro film. These guys I've probably done 10 knives on, and I'm still getting good cutting. It's getting to be time, 100%, but at the same time, these are very, very nice, and they're very impressive for that. So that's what's great about these guys. The actual stones doing the cutting, which, by the way, come with these little plastic covers, just a beautiful thing. Bring me some joy. So let's talk about what's bad, because there is always some bad. So on the bad side, first and foremost, it's pricey, absolutely 100%. The basic kit, which includes roughly this, plus a couple of other things in the case, is about $180. And here you can definitely do some great sharpening. Just with these 4 stones, with that kit, you can do a good job. However, that kit doesn't include this base, which is kind of crazy to me. The base seems like a really necessary and helpful thing. Once you move up to the deluxe kit, which is what I've got, which adds in some extra diamond stones, as well as a strop, as well as the base, as well as some ceramic stones that I haven't ended up using much. You're looking at $300, which is a non-trivial amount of money. And then if you throw in the lapping films, you're looking at $25 each. And then $14 for a set of new replacement films. They come with, I think, like 5 whatever. But you're looking at some serious money, like $325 or something along those lines for your full deluxe diamonds with everything. And that's non-trivial. That's a large amount of money. I mean, that's a good amount of money to spend on a knife, let alone on a knife sharpener. But hey, I can't really argue with the results too much, so I'm not going to throw it, down at the bus. There are some really overpriced sharpening systems out there. Wicked overpriced, if you will, but they are, this is a very different thing. I feel like I'm okay paying this money for this kit. Next thing, the films, like I mentioned, are very expensive. You pay $25, you get a piece of glass here, and then you get, I believe, 5 of these little tape-on sort of films. They just peel away. I'm not saying they're bad and you get a lot of life out of them, but that seems like a lot of money. And that one kind of hurt. To pay $300 for the system and then $50 more for films? Okay, whatever. It is, coming on to things more about the system, less about the price, it is actually fairly easy to fall out of the guide here. Particularly if you try and set the thing down, like you need to swap stones or wipe the blade, it's very easy for this to accidentally come flying out. It's not particularly a problem. And, if you're trying to do something that's way out here for whatever reason, you're sharpening your machete, you might have a bad time, but that is a little bit frustrating, that it is fairly straightforward to come out of there. However, at the same time, it's nice because you can very easily pull the whole thing out and set it down, or remove it for doing the stone changes. That was a little tougher on the Edge Pro, so it's kind of a wash. I'm not a huge problem with it, but it is a little unpleasant. Something that is a bigger problem with this guy is that this system is very dependent on the clamp position. You can't really trust these angle numbers that you get here because, think about it, it's geometry. If you've got your knife clamped down like this, so that a good portion of the knife is inside this, the distance from here to here is going to be longer, and thus the angle between them is going to be a little bit, he's going to be shorter, so the angle's going to be different. If you move the knife out further, your angle is just changed. And what this means is that basically you need to keep the knife at one consistent angle, and you always need to clamp it the same way. Or you just need to check with a Sharpie, make sure that you're doing the same angle each time you put the knife in. If you take the knife out, it's a good idea to trace where you had the clamp on the knife with a Sharpie. I learned that one from the Birdshot IV. But nonetheless, that clamp positioning is really important. And so you're going to need to do something like that. And if you want to be very consistent with the angle, like if you want to say I did this at 18.5, whatever the heck, degrees, angles, whatever, you may need to actually buy a little angle measurement cube so that you can actually say that. Because again, these numbers don't mean a lot unless you know how far things are away. So that's the last of the bad stuff here. It's pretty dependent on the clamp positioning. It's pretty easy to fall out of the guide thing here. Not a big deal. The base isn't included in the base model, which feels a little bit weird. It's just a piece of wood now. The films are kind of expensive, and the whole thing actually is a little bit pricey. Looking at, someplace between $180 and $300. So that's your bad. Let's talk about the ugly. The ugly here is actually not an issue with the KME itself, but with any of these clamped sorts of systems. That's that you are a little bit limited in terms of what kind of blade shapes you're really going to be able to sharpen. Some things that you might be afraid of actually work fine. Like a full flat grind knife can be okay, because you just slide it into the clamp and then you make sure, by giving a little bit of an extra pinch here, that it's nice and centered, because you want it to be the same angle coming at it from this direction and from this direction. If the blade is canted in there, you're going to have a bad time in that regard. So full flat grind doesn't present a problem, but very curvy blades can. On the Norseman, I can get away with it because there's this nice flat portion at the top here, but if you've got yourself like a Chris dagger, something along those lines, something where the spine of the blade has a curvature through it or a great deal of rounding, a very strong swedge, for instance, you're going to really struggle to use any of these clamped systems, whether it's the KME, the Lansky, or otherwise. The other situation that can cause problems are very thick blades, like on this EC Laser Strike or on pretty much anything that Greg Medford makes. In a knife that's this thick, you're going to have trouble just getting the clamps to shut around the knife. This is at the very upper limit of what this can handle. And for instance, the Medford Marauder that I have, which is on loan at the moment to my buddies at Birdshot IV, flat out will not work in this just because it's way too thick. So that is an advantage where something like the Edge Pro, where you're laying the knife down, has, well, it's got a serious advantage there because you support the weight of the knife instead of making this little clamp handle it. The other disadvantage on the clampy side is that if the blade moves at all, and this is able to be locked down pretty tight, but if the blade does move, you're going to have to make sure you get it back in the right position or you're going to have a very bad time. So that's kind of the ugly here, is that clamped systems do have some serious disadvantages if you're dealing with very weirdly shaped blades or very, very thick blades. And you're going to have to work around those on occasion. But so far, the Medford is the only knife that I own that is flat out incapable of being KME. Everything else has been so far so good. So let's talk final conclusions. Final conclusion, I love this sharpening system. I mean, flat out. I like the Edge Pro a great deal. It's a great system, and I don't want to sound like I'm saying it's a bad system. It is not. It is a great system, but the KME for me, well, if it tells you anything, I haven't used the Edge Pro since I got the KME. The KME is just a great system. And for me, at least, it does a slightly better job. It's slightly faster removing stock because of the diamonds, and it removes a lot of the complications of the Edge Pro. Things like stone leveling and those sorts of affairs. So I'm a much, much bigger fan of the KME than I am of the Edge Pro, and I really, really like this. There's going to be an Edge Pro for sale. So my final conclusion is that this is a shining freaking gem, and that if you're after a sharpening system, you should buy one. That said, a couple of other little conclusions. The first one is, you gotta ask yourself whether you actually need a sharpening system. This seems like a silly thing to say in a review or one, but remember that for the $300 you might spend to get a fully loaded KME, that'll buy a bunch of professional sharpenings from a really high-end sort of send-it-away sharpener. So if you only sharpen a knife once or twice a year, you've got to save money in the long term by not doing a system yourself. The other thing is, you got to remember that you're going to have a learning curve. The first knife you do with any new system is going to screw things up. That's why I did this little Walmart flipper as the first thing I tried with the KME. So this is now a $3 knife with a $20 edge, which I appreciate very much. But anyways, so remember those things, that, you know, it may not pay off to do a system at all, and there will be a learning curve, but I do recommend that you pick one of these up. And if you do, my recommended kit is as follows. You can get the basic kit for $179. You pick up the Beast as a separate edition, that's $25. You pick up the base, which really should be included. Come on, guys. And then you pick up a pair of the lapping films at 3 and 6 microns if you like the mirrored edge sort of shtick. And then if you got a couple of knives that are recurvy, go ahead and pick up a recurve rod for another $25. This puts you right around the same $300, but honestly, you're getting the extra lapping films and you're not paying for some things that you're not needing. So that's how I'd go with it. But at the end of the day, if you're looking at a sharpening system, this is my favorite at the moment. Take that for whatever it's worth. I'm not a professional sharpener, and I don't even dream to be. But I'm getting great results with this, and I'm getting them easier and faster than I did with my other systems, and so I can very, very highly recommend this and say that in addition to having diamonds, which are themselves gems, the KME is a gem. So there you go. I hope this has been interesting, that I honed my conclusions nicely, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful and sharp rest of your day. Bye now.